The Georgia Virtue presents the Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast. Welcome to episode 272. It always amazes me when I read what episode we're on. This week we have Trump's federal indictment. Canada is on fire. Cuban Missile Crisis, Part 2. Tim Scott puts the smackdown on The View. Ramaswamy puts a smackdown on pecker surgery. The fatty from New Jersey talks crap. Johnson and get the hell out of here. Bacteria eating flesh. Modelo Supremo. Shannon's health update. Troy's new touchdown. The PGA realizes money is good. And money has to be repaid. I'm Dave Roberts. With me is my partner in this endeavor, Ken Poland, who is also a representative emeritus and is being recruited to run again.
No, I'm not. Do not. No. Not at all, Dave. I'm good.
No, you said something on Facebook, and everybody's like, run again, run again, run again.
I know. We're going to pass on that. For the moment.
For the moment. That's a very political answer.
That is a political answer.
So we have Trump indicted again, this time by the feds.
I know, this is amazing. And as our taping, this was a couple days ago, and I was at a Brooke Dunn's concert when this came out. But yeah, this is round two, and this is
not to brag.
Not to brag. No, I think, and my voice is a little hoarse this week. I think it was from singing Brooks and Dunn songs a little too long last night. But yeah, this is a federal charge this time instead of a state charge like he faced in New York and potentially will face in Georgia. So kind of up the ante here, didn't they, Dave?
Well, you know, I've said on the show many times that federal prosecutors don't indict what they don't think they can convict.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that Trump did anything that any other former president has done, but they're after his ass.
They are, and this is a charge under the Espionage Act, as well as charges of obstruction of justice, destruction or falsification of records, conspiracy, and false statements. And this is actually the first time a former president or a presidential frontrunner from any major political party has ever been charged with a federal crime. So we are making history with this.
You know, the thing is, first of all, under the Espionage Act, technically, he could be killed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you talk about espionage, they will not ask for this. That this is not going to happen, but he could be shot.
Yes. Yeah, they're talking about here a potential jail sentence of 100 years is what these, along with what you just said, but a potential jail sentence of up to 100 years goes along with these charges.
And does any reasonable person think that he did anything that every other president doesn't do?
No, I mean, this is, this is ridiculous. You know,
look,
Thomas, I was going to say Thomas Massey, who I think both of us really respect, a sitting congressman from Kentucky, said this is a sitting president arresting his political opponent is the ultimate weaponization of government. I mean, it feels like we're at the point where the Department of Justice, FBI, and the IRS are all just ran by the far left Democrat Party now.
But what's the goal?
Going after. Yeah, I don't know what the goal of this is because Trump still, I think this, again, we've talked about this the first time he was indicted, how we thought he was going to be the Republican candidate after that. And I think this just I've seen more and more support from people on Twitter and on Facebook today saying, yeah, I'm definitely voting on Trump now. So I think he's going to be the nominee and he can still run for president and win, even if he's indicted and potentially gets found guilty of the charges.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I don't understand the goal. He didn't do anything that Obama, that Biden hasn't done with documents. What's the end goal? Even if they indicted him and he was removed from the Republican carnival of candidates, Biden can't beat a Ramaswamy or Tim Scott. He can't. His only hope is beating a Trump.
Yeah, I think that is the goal, is to get Trump elected. I think they all know that the more the attention stays on Trump, the more likely he is to become the GOP nominee. And I think that's the only one that Biden could potentially beat. I thought it was funny that the Babylon Bee came out with an article, and if everyone doesn't know what a Babylon Bee is, it's a satire website, but they said Trump indicted for keeping classified documents in Mar-a-Lago.
With your accent, it's a what website?
A parody or satire. Or satire. How do we say it down in South Georgia? Yep. But they said he was indicted for keeping classified documents in Mar-a-Lago instead of somewhere secure like the trunk of a Corvette. So I thought that was a funny reference to secure documents at Biden's home just sitting out in the garage and in the back of a Corvette.
Yeah, and I honestly don't think Trump's goal was to take anything that shouldn't have been taken. And look, this idea that the outgoing president, is packing his own crap. It never happens, right? Yeah, this is not somebody who just found out they're being evicted from their apartment.
Right.
They have a whole bunch team of papers that does this stuff.
Yep.
And look, I'm not standing up to defend Trump on this stuff, but I don't think he's done anything that any other president hasn't done.
No, I don't think so either. I think that's just a big witch hunt. And as our podcast drops on Monday, Trump was scheduled to speak at the Georgia GOP convention over the weekend. So the GOP convention is starting on Friday. Saturday is the main business at the GOP convention, and Trump is supposed to speak right in the middle of the convention business at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. So I would imagine he's going to have a good old time talking to the Georgia crew about this indictment and about the 2024 election and potentially the 2020 election. Especially
the loons that are at the convention.
Right. I mean, they're going to be fired up with him coming in to speak. And it's going to be a long convention day because typically you start a convention at 10 o'clock in the morning and it lasts till 6, 7 o'clock at night without having someone speak. So with Trump coming in during the middle of the day, they're going to have to take potentially a 2 to 3 hour break in the middle of the convention to hear President Trump.
Just good God. Anyway, yes. New York is smoky. And it ain't weed.
Yeah, what a weird story this is. This is hundreds of wildfires burning out of control in Canada, and all the smoke from Canada is drifting down into the Northeast. So earlier this week, New York, the airport in New York had to be shut down because of visibility. And if you've seen the pictures in New York, you can barely see.
They had to shut down Yankees games.
Yes, right.
We were talking before the show. The only reason we have wildfires like this is we don't do controlled burns anymore. The underbrush that normally naturally would be burned off and the trees would survive, but the underbrush would be burned off, is not happening anymore. And now we get these giant wildfires that's sending smoke thousands of miles away.
Mm-hmm. This is what happened in California. When was it, last year or the year before last? And it's because these states, and even in this case, Canada, like you said, stop with these controlled burns. So when there is a fire, it just takes off like crazy because you've got all this underbrush that should have already been cleared out and burned. Yeah, this smoke actually is going to reach Norway over the weekend. So we're talking about 1,000 miles away smoke going all the way across the Atlantic to northern Europe.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's the environmentalist movement is not based in science.
Yes, and Elizabeth Warren again is taking the charge on this, blaming it all on climate change. She's saying this is purely related to climate activity, and if we don't act now, then we're going to have catastrophic events continue to occur.
Yeah,
so it's like anytime there's a shooting, right? We jump on gun control. Anytime an event like this happens, you don't look at the underlying cause of it. You just instantly jump to the climate change narrative.
Yeah, she's an idiot. First of all, climate change has never not been a thing. The climate is constantly changing. Whether it's an ice age or where we are now, which is post-ice age, and probably pre-ice age.
Mm-hmm.
The climate is constantly changing.
Yep.
This is why they moved away from global warming.
It's just climate change now. Yep.
And the climate is constantly changing. She's an idiot. I mean, she surely is.
She is. I just don't know how long she can hang around, but she's the gift that just keeps on giving.
Well, she's been around for a while.
Yeah, and look, and the AOC got on the bandwagon too this week, and I don't know if you also saw that she had a town hall in her district a couple of weeks ago where people just blasted her. So maybe I got a feeling that AOC is going to be primaried at some point. We won't have to put up with her anymore. But Elizabeth Warren is just the worst.
Well, AOC's hot, so
I thought you said Elizabeth Warren was also.
Nah, hey, Elizabeth Warren's not really my thing, but the Republicans tried to insult her by showing the video she did in college of her dancing on the roof, and
backfired.
I'm like, that's hot as hell. So we've got China is putting they're calling it's being called on conservative media a spy base, but they're putting an
right.
intelligence operation in Cuba.
Mm-hmm. So that just came out this week, right?
Yeah, this is sort of Cuban Missile Crisis Part 2.
Yep. Yeah, so they said that China had reached a secret deal with Cuba to establish an electronic eavesdropping facility on the island roughly 100 miles from Florida. Came out this week. And they said the U.S. and the Cuban governments both cast strong doubt on the report, but I assume this is going to move forward.
I know. I don't have a problem with this. Reason being is China is working with its ally. It's the same thing that we do.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want if you don't want things that you say over radio to be intercepted, don't say them.
Yeah, I don't like a Chinese base being in Cuba, but I also don't necessarily like us having war drills in the Straits of Taiwan between Taiwan and China like we were last week. There was almost a incident over there where a Chinese boat ran into a U.S. destroyer, and there was a lot of talk on that. And the first thing that comes to my mind is, why are we having exercises in the China Sea that's provoking these type of events to occur?
Well, that kind of stuff happens all the time.
It does, but it just always seems like we're the ones having. Look, I guess it goes back to money for me. We're spending a gazillion dollars again having drills in the China Sea between Taiwan and China. I mean, do we need to be doing this at this point?
And why?
Yeah, and why? Right. I mean, it's a why.
Could you hold the same drills and train the guys the same way at Pearl Harbor instead of being across? Yeah.
Right. It's just provocation. Yeah. It's just provoking.
I am honestly confused with the Biden's administration a view on China and North Korea. I am honestly confused because I have no idea what our stance is now.
No, I don't either. I don't know what we would do if China invaded Taiwan. Are we going to war? Are we giving them weapons? Are we going to be the same thing? Are we going to be in this Ukraine situation again where we just continue to pump billions of dollars into Ukraine like we would do Taiwan? So, yeah, it's a little confusing on what the overall strategy is.
Yeah, I have no idea. I am not a big fan of the Ukrainian stance that we have, because I have no idea what the end goal is.
Yep. Yeah, me too. I think, and that's one that we'll talk about this in a minute, but I think that's what some of the Republican candidates next year for the presidential nomination are saying. Like, what is the goal of what we're doing in Ukraine at the moment, and could those dollars be spent a lot better back at home?
Well, it's going to be very interesting to see Republicans running as doves. Yeah, that's going to be different.
Right. Yeah, but we're going on a year in Ukraine, and I think I saw a stat that said we spent $200 billion in Ukraine so far. I mean, we could potentially spend $1 trillion plus if this thing continues to go. And now you saw this week that Ukraine is actually attacking Russia. They've got their F-16s, and they're starting to do more offensive drills. So it's hard to see where this ends over the next year.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, we have this limp-wristed foreign policy and no one knows what it is. Even with Truman, who I never agreed with, the Truman Doctrine there was a goal. We're going to stop the spread of communism. But with Ukraine and with Taiwan, we have no clear-cut goal on that.
Right.
It's just go throw money at it.
That's what that is. Just throw money on a fire.
Well, Tim Scott decided to debate racism.
Yeah, this is interesting. So we thought we'd give a couple presidential updates from the race. And yeah, Tim Scott went on The View, which I don't think either one of us would probably do. Not that they would want us. But you don't see a lot of Republicans or conservatives on The View. And he really went on there to talk about this viewpoint that a lot of people on The View have, that the U.S. is systemically racist, and that there's no way for a young African American to actually seek to be successful in the country. And that was his point in going on there of saying, look, I grew up, I came from nothing. I made it, I'm in the Senate now. I'm running for president. President Obama was our first black president. You've got a black vice president now. You've had 2 black secretaries of state. African Americans have opportunities, so you don't have to be the exception. And that's what he was arguing with The View. And it actually, honestly, just blew their mind. You could see them not wanting to go down this path at all with him and debate this.
No, they don't debate it because he trumps everything they have.
Yep, exactly.
What was interesting was that he was in on Monday to say that Joy Reid is off. They purposely put him where Joy Reid was going to be off. So, you can't debate Tim Scott on racism because he's black. So it takes all their talking points away.
Yeah. He does. And he said, he added, when he was talking with, it was Sonny Hostin is who he was really having a debate with. But he says, this view of yours that America is systemically racist, he said, that's a dangerous, offensive, disgusting message to send. And he said, honestly, both sides of the political aisle can do a lot better job on this issue of race. But I thought he was spot on. There's opportunities, but you have to, take those opportunities and go after them. But people do have opportunities, and that's what he was trying to say, where, The View, they want to do the old Al Sharpton treatment where everybody's oppressed, the entire country is racist, and nobody has an opportunity to succeed if you're not a white male. And, and I'm glad he went on. I wish more candidates would go on and present their sides. But that View is a terrible group of people, though. It's hard to watch it.
No, they're awful people. But the fact that Tim Scott is, he takes all comers. If you want me in the View, no problem.
He does,
and he doesn't shrink from it.
No, he doesn't. And what I like about some of these other candidates that are running for the GOP nomination this year is they do have some really good ideas. They've got good points. They're all being overshadowed, though, and it's like we mentioned earlier with President Trump. I think the focus of the Democrats is to keep all the news on President Trump. Let's make sure he wins the nomination because we think we can beat him. We don't want to have to debate with Tim Scott or Vivek Ramaswamy, or I'm not going to mention Chris Christie or Rob DeSantis. They don't want to go toe to toe with those guys, or even Nikki Haley. They want to keep all the focus on Trump.
Well, no, they don't want to. They don't want to talk issues.
No issue talk. It's just Trump. Trump is bad. MAGA Republicans are bad. And that's the message right now from Biden. And every time he opens up his mouth and starts talking, it's MAGA Republicans.
So after Tim Scott smacks down the View, Vivek Ramaswamy went after Chuck Paul.
Yeah, and look, I know people probably say we talk about Vivek quite a bit on the show, but I like the guy. I think he's got a lot of good thoughts and good positions. But Chuck Paul is the most smug broadcaster on TV I've ever seen. But he's on Meet the Press, 10 a.m. on Sunday mornings, and they started talking about gender dysphoria and allowing, kids under 18 to go through with surgical surgeries, all the different, breast removal and going through puberty blockers and all that. And they had a really good debate on that, I thought. And I thought Vivek stood up well to Chuck Todd.
The dysmorphia is the definition of mental illness. Body dysmorphia is people who have eating disorders.
Right.
They say, I'm fat. Like, you weigh 80 pounds. No, I'm fat. And when we talk about people with eating disorders, we try to address the mental illness and tell them, and help them. But with body dysmorphia, we're like, oh, okay, cut your pecker off.
Yep. And that was his point, too, is he said, gender dysphoria for most of our country, or for, most of our past, most of our history has been treated as a mental health disorder. Only over the last couple of years has gender dysphoria been treated as, okay, let's go cut your stuff off, or let's start putting you on puberty blockers. Only recently has that occurred, and he made the point of saying, we don't allow kids under 18 to get tattoos, we don't allow kids under 18 to smoke, but we think it's okay now as a society. Well, some people do, I don't think we do. I know I don't, but he's saying, but it's okay now if you're below the age of 18 to consent to body-altering surgeries. And he said, if you're over 18, go do what you want to do. But we got to protect the children that are under 18. They cannot consent to these type of surgeries on their body.
Someone would not find it appropriate to have sex with a person under 18. They should not be making decisions about their sexual parts.
I know. And it's, a lot of this stuff comes from moms, though, I think. I mean, again, I hate to blame it on the rich white moms, but I think that's where you see a lot of this coming from.
And look, I've read stories on this, and not just stories, but evidence on this. What we find, especially with the female to male transition, is these are girls that you and I knew as goths, as cutters, as kids who were depressed, and what they're being told on Reddit and other places on the internet is, the reason you're depressed is you're actually a boy,
right?
And these girls get immediate gratification when they quote unquote transition, but once
they get acceptance.
Once that's gone, they're left with the same mental illness they had before. We know, based on history, that gender dysmorphia is overwhelmingly male to female, is overwhelmingly presented in early childhood, and that's where we see it, and we're throwing that science just out, just away. That's we know how it presents itself, but we're pretending that we don't know.
Yep. And I saw an article with Megan Fox this week. She's an actress, was in the Transformers movies. She's got 3 young boys, all under 10.
Oh, I know who Megan Fox is because she is a fox.
Yeah, I bet you do. But look, she's got 3 young boys. She's got every one of them dressed as girls. So she has transitioned her boys into girls. And they said even the nanny, they were interviewing her ex-nanny, and the nanny said, I couldn't say anything because we lived in California. And if I spoke up about this, I could potentially be prosecuted for speaking up and saying something.
Not just that, I'm sure she was pretty highly paid.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, but Vivek, on Meet, this is not the only thing they talked about on Meet the Press. They also talked about Ukraine quite a bit. He said our interests are not in Ukraine, and he wouldn't spend another dollar over there if he was elected president. He said that money could be spent better back at home. And he really went toe-to-toe with Chuck Paul. So very good article, very good interview.
You know what? He also could have said that money would have been better spent by the taxpayers it's stolen from.
Yep, I agree.
All right, so the FDA is pulling the J&J vaccine, Johnson & Johnson.
Yes, and this is after 19 million doses have been administered. I guess, about 2 to 3 years after it came out? But now J&J is no longer in the COVID vaccine business. And mainly it was because of blood clotting and how some of the people that had taken the J&J shot, this was the 1 shot instead of the 2, but they had severe blood clotting disorders with this.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And it goes into what we see with these professional athletes that are dropping dead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's been quite a few.
Yeah, we're seeing these extremely healthy athletes dropping dead. Now, can I attach that to the vaccines? No, but also they were forced to get it if they wanted to play.
Yes, forced. You couldn't come into the country if you hadn't been vaccinated. That's Roger or how do you say his last name? The number 1 tennis player in the world couldn't play in the U.S. Open because he wasn't vaccinated because the U.S. still had that policy in place.
Yeah,
so there was,
and with the NFL in particular, you could not play. Look, if you were a Tom Brady or something like that, there were things to work around. But if you were on the margins, if you were close to getting cut, you better take that damn vaccine.
Yeah, what's the odds of a healthy 25-year-old football player really suffering severe illness from COVID? I mean, it was very little, if anything. The people that were really getting sick with COVID were senior adults with pre-existing health conditions. It wasn't 25 to 30-year-old football players that are in top peak physical
We had a case where
condition.
Football players dropped down. He just fell out. And had it not been on the field that day, because there's medical professionals all around football fields, as particularly at the professional level.
Yep.
If he wasn't resuscitated at that moment, he'd have died. But we find this with college athletes, and the ones that really suffer are the ones that are not football players or whatever. They're the ones running track, things like that, where you don't have the resources on hand, and these folks are dropping dead, and it's not even addressed in any of the media that what causes a 20-year-old peak physical condition to drop dead. And look, I don't know that it is or is not part of the vaccine. But and it's hard to say. Well, we never heard about this before because social media has changed all that. But no one's looking into it. Is the problem? All right, so we have flesh-eating bacteria in Florida.
Yeah, this was an interesting story. And this is actually two stories in one, but I thought this was funny. It was a family at a family reunion down in Tampa Bay. This one guy tried to get between a fight, and he got bit by one of his family members and contracted
Got bit.
a flesh-eating. Yeah, got bit by a family member. By the third day after being bit by a family member, his leg was in all kind of pain, so he had to go to and have emergency surgery. But he was diagnosed with necrotizing fasciitis, and they were able to save his leg. But that's just part of the story. So this was flesh-eating by being bitten, but there's also a lot of flesh-eating bacteria washing up on Florida's shores this year and algae. So Florida's put out kind of a travel warning to say, if you present these symptoms or you come down with these symptoms, you need to get to a hospital because it could be this flesh-eating bacteria that's going around.
It's really early for that.
It is, yes. It usually comes later in the year when the water warms up more.
Right. We see this in August.
Yep.
And typically we see it in fresh water, not salt.
Mm-hmm.
We hear about ponds and that kind of stuff where if you have a cut on your leg or whatever and you go swimming in a pond in Florida when it's 102 degrees outside, that you get this flesh-eating bacteria.
Yep.
It's very interesting.
Mm-hmm. It is. Yeah, so I guess, I don't know what this does for hurricane season, but it does seem like the water down in the Gulf is really warm early this time of year. So that could really lead itself to more, bigger storms as we go through the season.
Well, Ken, you and I look at things differently. What I thought was it means that we're gonna have more warm water fish to be caught. So we'll see.
Hey, I'm still waiting on my invite to go fishing.
Me too. But we're going to see more cobia. We're going to see more dolphin, not porpoise, my. But we're going to see more of those fish moving further and further north into the Gulf of Mexico earlier. And
have you ever caught one of those big grouper, or what are they called? The giant groupers that weigh 200, 300, 400 pounds? Yeah, have you?
Jewfish?
Yeah.
Yeah, jewfish, also known as Goliath grouper. And before anybody says that you shouldn't call it jewfish, that's how it's listed in the Florida
Gotcha.
regs about whether or not you can catch them. They're protected. They now allow a handful of tags to get them, but yeah, they're called bridge trolls. The way you catch them is you take a giant hook and put it through a Jack Crevalle, and you put it on cable, wire line, and you set it down by a bridge, and you don't reel. Once you hook up, you tell the captain, whoever's driving the boat, to back the boat away to pull it out of its hole.
Oh, wow.
They're the size of Volkswagens.
They can't be as good as a normal 20, 25 pound grouper, could they? I've
never eaten one because they've been protected.
Yeah. The best to me is 20, 25 pound grouper and mahi. Those are my two fish of the seas that I enjoy the most.
We could do way better. we can do way better. I'm getting into the show that I tried to.
I know this went on a fishing tangent.
But yeah, they say the meat's really good. It's been protected since before my parents were born. My grandfather talked about catching jewfish. So I've never had it, but grouper is awfully tasty.
Yep.
So Modelo has surpassed Bud Light in sales.
Yeah, this was a shock to me. It wasn't that Bud Light sales were down, but it was like who is overtaken now. And it's actually Modelo. So for the week that ended May 20th, Bud Light sales were down 25% from the same week a year ago, while Modelo Especial was up 9.2%. So Modelo has, and the latest headline says they have surpassed Bud Light in U.S.
Who is
based
going
sales.
off of Bud Light to Modelo? I mean,
I don't know, not me. But I did go to I was at a concert last night and they had Modelo, but there were no Bud Lights to be found. So this is the first time I've ever been to a concert and there was not a Bud Light or Budweiser in the entire place. Yeah, there's got to be some Bud Light drinkers at a Brooks and Dunn concert.
No, it's very interesting. I don't know that this is a function of people going over to Modelo as much as it is Modelo probably stayed the same and Bud Light fell off.
Yep. Yeah, they said Modelo sales jumped 9.2%. So that still is a fairly big number to jump. But I agree. I don't think it's a lot of Bud Light drinkers just going over. This could also be we're getting into the summer months and more people are wanting to drink beer during the summer. The interesting thing here is I was wondering if Modelo is owned by Anheuser-Busch. They're not in the U.S., but they are elsewhere. So this is not just money moving from one Anheuser-Busch brand to another. Yeah, Modelo is not owned by AB in the U.S.
I don't know how much that is a function of people leaving Bud Light. But, beer drinkers are going to find something. And honestly, if you're trying to find something that is totally not Anheuser-Busch, I mean, you would think Modelo would be the answer to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe so. But, so the Bud Light sales are down 25%. Target stock has been down 18% in the last month. I think the boycott of Bud Light's going to last, and we even talked about this earlier. I'm not sure Bud Light will ever recover from this. I think they potentially just have to get rid of the brand or rebrand it something else. I think Target probably recovers at a certain point, but their stock is down 18%, which is a big number over a 1 month period.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you that Target will probably recover. Bud Light needs a rebrand. Target's been in the crosshairs before, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Been in the crosshairs before, and survived.
Yep.
Look, Target is not visited by straight white males. It is overwhelmingly done by women, and they're not going to not go to Target.
Right. I agree.
I mean, where else are you going to go? Walmart?
Yeah. There's not a comparable other store to Target really out there that's local that you can just easily get in and out of. This is a step up from Walmart. Yep.
No, barely. So, Shannon Doherty has cancer.
Yes, I don't know about you, but I kind of grew up watching 90210, and she was the big actress in 902, kind of the villain, right, in 90210. But she was. You didn't watch that show?
I've never seen.
Oh, you need to watch it. It's good.
But I will say that she is, or she was. I haven't seen her lately. Hot as hell.
Yeah, she was. She was attractive in a sort of a mean kind of way to me. Dark hair, kind of mean looking, attractive. If that makes any sense.
No, it does, because I'm married to a mean woman.
This is the same show, 90210. They put out a cast of characters. This was Jason Priestley. This was Brian Austin Green, Luke Perry, Ian Ziering, Tori Spelling, Shannon Doherty, Tiffany
Tori Spelling was in it because her father was the producer.
Yes, producer. Yeah, but this 90210 show back in the day was very popular, and I still remember Shannon Doherty being one of the main villains in that show. So she was first diagnosed with cancer back in 2015. and now it's in her brain. But I think she thinks she may be able to get through with it. It's just going to be, she's going to have radiation treatments on her brain now, which they're rough. My dad had those before he passed away, and they're not easy to deal with.
And look, she actually has a pretty good personality, from what I can tell. She went on Saturday Night Live, and they did the Salem bitch trials. And so she has a pretty good sense of humor about the role that she was in, being, not being very nice. I have nothing bad to say about her. Just, when I say she's hot, that's just a fact.
Yep, and she's 52 years old, so she's very young for this.
So obviously, we both give her our best. You know who's not 52?
Yep.
Troy Aikman's new girlfriend.
Troy Aikman? Yeah, Troy is actually 56, and his new girlfriend, Haley, is...
Good for Troy.
34. Well, I mean, Troy's been divorced twice now. His recent marriage that he was married to Kappa Aikman. They were married 3 or 4 years. He got divorced over the last year. Now he is on to Haley, who is 34, taking trips all over the world.
Look, when you become an NFL quarterback, there's a certain level of hotness that you're going to date.
So you're not dating like 5s or 6s. You're up in the 8.5s and above.
Yeah, and Troy's a good-looking dude.
Yeah, he is. For 56 years old, he stayed in really great shape. He's still on Fox, I think, doing football games on the weekends. Yeah, he's good at what he does, and he was a good football player also.
Oh, he's a hell of a football player. But yeah,
I remember him at
even
Dallas
with his shirt off. I mean, at 50 whatever years old, he's still a solid, good-looking dude. Not that I know that sounds awfully gay.
I wasn't agreeing with you. I was just saying yes. I haven't seen any pictures of Troy bare-chested.
Oh, I saw when the story came out. I saw pictures of him on the beach and all that stuff. But Troy stays in good shape. He's still a celebrity. A huge celebrity in Dallas, obviously.
Yeah, so the best to Troy and his new girlfriend, Haley, as they continue their budding relationship.
Now this...
I've got it. We've got great wives.
I would lose everything I owned if I divorced my wife. I was on a podcast. I was as a guest on a podcast, and I said my misogynistic joke, which is I don't judge women on a scale of 1 to 10 anymore. It's whether or not they're worth half my. Sorry, Eric. And I haven't found one yet.
No.
This is a good time to remind you that these are our opinions and not those of anyone not on the show or any respective company for which we may work, own, or otherwise associate ourselves with on a regular or irregular basis. Also, you can find other episodes and relevant stories over at georgiavirtue.com. This is a very interesting mule.
Yes, it is. This was funny. This kind of took over TikTok and Twitter this week, but a TikTok user, she went by the name at Miss Petch, did a TikTok video. She said she was really struggling with dating now. And Dave, why don't you tell the viewers the reason why she's really struggling?
Well, she's struggling because the men, she's a hard left liberal. The men that she meets that align with her politically don't treat her like conservative men do. And this is I actually dove into this one pretty deep, so to speak. I've talked to 20 female friends of mine, to ask them, and some are conservative, some are liberal. And to a person, even liberals like to be treated well by the men they date.
Mm-hmm. And that's what she said. She said she's having trouble finding a more traditional masculine role in a relationship with a man. So she wants a traditional masculine man that, sounds like opens her door for her, pays for meals, she feels safe around, but she doesn't want that person to be a conservative. So she's having a really hard time finding a liberal guy that treats her nice and protects her and is just good to be with.
One of the things that I discovered is it's not political, it's generational. That the younger liberal men don't do that stuff, but older, our age, liberal men do treat women well. But it's more generational.
But I agree, it's generational. Yeah, it's got to be, because think if you were a 22-year-old liberal guy right now, and you went out on a date with another liberal female, would you open a door for her? Would you offer to pay for dinner? I mean, I think would be terrified to even try that, because you might get met with resistance to just doing things that you say generationally we have done for years, right? My parents always told me to open a car door for your date, open a door for your date, pay for dinner. I think these young guys are terrified of even trying that now.
I did talk to a friend of mine whose wife is more liberal. And he said when he holds the door open for his wife, and she'll say, "I can open my own damn door." Well,
but it's just being nice at the end of the day. It's been nice and polite.
Same here. It's one of those things that
it's just being a polite person.
If I'm walking into Quick Trip and somebody's directly behind me, I will stand aside and open the door for them.
Yes, and people appreciate it. Every time I do that at the local racetrack, I don't care who it is, they say thank you. That's also a Southern thing where people are just, in general, a lot nicer.
I think being a gentleman is being lost.
I agree.
It has nothing to do with minimizing women or anything else. It's not that you can't hold the door open or anything else, but it's just like you and I were talking about. I'll hold the door open for a guy. It's being a gentleman.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that I don't even think about.
I don't either. It's just second nature.
Right. It's just what you do. It's just the way I was raised, and I'm afraid that that's being lost.
So this lady that posted this TikTok video, if you went out and looked at the comments, they were all sort of, it went viral, right? So you had all kind of comments out there, mostly negative at her and making fun of her. And then she proceeds to make 3 or 4 more TikToks after, where she looks like the looniest person you've ever met, which even made those go viral at that point, because they're like, who in the world would want to date you? But yeah, she's having a really struggle, and she's not been nice in responding to the comments and all the attention that she got from posting this.
Yeah, well, that won't help.
No, it's not going to help at all.
So the PGA has made peace with LIV.
Yeah, this came out of the middle of nowhere, and I play a lot of golf, and so this was the talk of all my golfing buddies this week when it came out. But LIV, and if anybody doesn't know the backstory here, the LIV Tour was created by a bunch of billionaire Saudis last year, guys from Saudi Arabia, billionaire oil guys over there. And they went out and paid about 20, 25 PGA Tour players and created their own golf league, which created a lot of, issues between players that saw these guys going over playing on the other tour. Greg Norman was a co-founder of it. Phil Mickelson was. Dustin Johnson, a lot of good PGA players went over, and they got paid substantial dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars in a lot of cases. And as the LIV Tour got created last year, the PGA Tour commissioner was saying that these guys shouldn't go over there. This is, bad money, blood money that they're taking. This is, these people attacked us on 9/11. So he made a big deal about it. And all of a sudden this week, they joined forces. So it's been quite the turn of face from the PGA combining with the Live, because now all the money's together.
Yeah, especially when Greg Norman is way past his prime.
Yeah, Greg's probably 62-ish maybe now.
Yeah, and I'm a huge Greg Norman fan. But he's past his prime. But when you talk about lefty, Phil Mickelson, he's close, but he's still relevant.
He's very relevant. He won a PGA Championship 2 years ago. So he actually went and joined a Live Tour about a year after he won a major event on the PGA.
Yeah, it's when you're losing people like Mickelson, the PGA was kind of hamstrung.
It was, and Brooks Koepka went over to the Live Tour last year, and he actually won a PGA Championship 2 weeks ago, which I honestly think was kind of the final straw to say, we've got guys on the Live Tour winning events now, so we have got to somehow pull us back together and get everyone back on the same page. But a lot of the PGA players are very hurt as part of this, because they said, we could have gone over to the Live and made $100 million. We stayed on the PGA Tour thinking this was never going to happen, and now you're just combining forces with them.
And I think the Masters had a lot to do with it.
I do too. Yep.
Is the Masters is open to anybody who qualifies.
Anybody they invite that has a certain ranking, but yeah, the Masters let all the Live guys play, and they didn't say you couldn't play.
They give exactly zero craps about what the PGA or television or anybody else thinks.
Yeah, they do their own thing in Augusta.
And when they brought in the Live players, I think that was probably a contributing factor to them going, all right, we need to make some changes.
Yep, I agree. So we'll see where this goes. It's still got to get, it looks like, regulatory approval by the U.S. government, because they're joining two big sort of monopoly type firms with the DP World Tour, which is another tour in England. So it's going to be interesting to see if all this does come together. But right now it's on the path to come together as one big tour in golf.
I don't know if that's good or bad.
I think it's good for the viewer, which that's what I am.
No,
it may not be good for all the players, but it's definitely good for viewers.
Having the stars that are on the Live Tour on PGA stuff and sitting around on a Sunday afternoon watching, yes, that's good. I don't know the money side of it, and of course, I never will, because no one's ever offered me $100 million to play golf. I mean, look, there might be somebody to offer me a million not to hit a golf ball. But it's very interesting that the animosity that if you play for Live, you could not play PGA Tour events.
No, they cut you out of all those events,
with the exception of the Masters, the Players, the U.S. Open, things like that. There's a reason it's called the U.S. Open. I actually saw a story of a Uber driver that qualified for the U.S. Open.
Yeah, they qualified. Yeah, great story this week. Yeah, the U.S. Open has qualifying events, so anybody can qualify.
That's 10 Cup.
You have to have a certain handicap. It's 10 Cup. Yeah, so this guy just drives an Uber car and says he plays as much golf as he can when he's not driving. So to make the U.S. Open, which is probably the biggest professional golfing event outside of the Masters maybe in the world, you have to qualify. So you had to go through like 2 or 3 different qualifying rounds, and he made it through all the qualifying rounds and will be playing in the U.S. Open. So great story.
But you're a golfer. I'm not. I have played golf. I haven't since I tore my knee up. But can you imagine what it's like to be an amateur and then walk on to the U.S. Open? And From what I saw, all the professional golfers were super gracious to him.
Yeah, they were. And his name was Barry Henson. And the U.S. Open actually starts, when this show drops, it starts the same week. So it'll start on Thursday it'll be Father's Day weekend. So look for this guy, see how he does. But it's Barry Henson.
Even if he ends up.
If he shoots 80-80, it's still a great story. It doesn't matter how he does.
Yeah, if he doesn't make the cut, it doesn't matter. But
yep.
There are very few sports that you could walk on and stand next to professionals. You can't do that in baseball. You can't do that in football. So there actually are 43 spots that were reserved for this, and there were thousands of people that tried to secure a spot in the U.S. Open, but he won one of those 43 spots. So yeah, and it's not. Look, there's PGA pro guys trying to qualify for the U.S. Open. So this is not just amateurs out there qualifying. He's out there with guys that didn't qualify that needed to go through the same process he did. So it's an amazing story. And I mean, it'll bring a tear to your eye. The idea of walking onto the course and being surrounded by your heroes. You know, it'd be like me walking onto a baseball field and shaking hands with Dale Murphy. Or Greg Maddux or something like that. Mm-hmm. It's a wonderful story.
Yeah, it is.
So
thanks for bringing that up. That's
student loans are going to have to be repaid. Almost like they borrowed it.
They are. And this is, it's hard to believe you got to pay back the money that you borrowed. But if you remember this, that pause known as a forbearance, it took effect during the emergency pandemic back in March 2020 under President Trump. So President Trump was the first one that stopped these payments. And now it's been 3 years, 9 extensions later, and these bills are going to come due starting on August 29th. So this will affect nearly 44 million borrowers with federal student loans. So a huge number of people that have been not having to pay their student loans, and a lot of them thought they were going to get taken care of by the government and they weren't going to have to pay them. All that's starting to become due again on August 29th.
It's almost like if you borrow money, you have to friggin' pay it back.
Yeah, and they said the problem with this is back during COVID in March 2020 when they stopped, a lot of people were paying $200 or $300 a month on their COVID or on their student loans. That stopped, so these people went out and bought cars, got bigger apartments, houses, and they thought they'd never have to pay that again, never have to pay it back now. So they really think the car market now, there'd be a lot more repos. There could even be a lot more bankruptcies now. But this is going to be a big deal for these 44 million borrowers.
The thing about bankruptcies is student loans are exempt.
No, you can't. Those are exempt from any type of bankruptcy procedures.
Man, they're saying that this could cause a recession.
It is. They say that money coming out and having to pay the government now is going, it's you're not going to be able to spend it going out to eat. You're not going to be able to spend it on cars, and on all these extracurricular type activities that people do because they've got to pay the loans. So they're really looking at this later this year is this going to plunge us into a mini recession? And
I have a very unpopular opinion, which is we need a recession.
Just a small one.
Well, we need to have a market correction. The salary increases and all that stuff is unsustainable.
Yeah, it's been crazy. Even in my field, it's been crazy for the last 3 or 4 years, 5 years.
And if you majored in lesbian studies of the 1600s, that's on you.
Mm-hmm.
If you didn't get a degree that translates into income, that's on you.
Yeah, and I've been going down this student loan with my son. He got a great scholarship, so he's not going to have to borrow any money next year. But I wanted to see what type of process it was to get student loans. And it's not, I thought it would be a lot easier than it was. It wasn't easy for him to even qualify for the student loans. But, there's federal student loans, there's private student loans. Some interest doesn't start until you get a job and get out of college. Some interest starts while you're in college. So there's all kind of flavors of these student loans that you can get. And I'm assuming a lot of kids have multiple types of student loans. So it's not just one. It could be 2 or 3 different loans, and they've all got interest accruing with all different payment amounts.
Yeah, and they don't understand. It's tough to explain to an 18-year-old.
Yeah, there's no way my son Luke can make a decision. I mean, he's a smart kid, but I wouldn't want him going through a financial decision to borrow tens of thousands of dollars at 18. I don't know how we expect any kids to make great financial decisions at 18 when we're not teaching anything about financial literacy in high school. I mean, that's not taught at all.
And you're exactly right. I talked to a kid who, he was 22. He was getting out of life college. He was going to be a chiropractor. And he told me he had $100-something thousand in student loans. And he used part of it to buy a motorcycle and stuff like that. And I said, do they teach math at life? Because I asked him, how much money do you get for cracking a back? He's like, about $50. And I said,
Right.
Son, do you know how many backs you have to crack to pay that loan? And it was when I put it like that to him, he was kind of stunned. Like, he owes at the time, this is several years ago, he owed like $180-something thousand in loans. I said, do you know how many backs you have to crack to if you paid for nothing else, how many backs you'd have to crack to do that?
Right.
And I'm not minimizing what chiropractors do and all that stuff, but it was me breaking it down to the easiest thing possible. All right, Kenny. You got any closing thoughts?
I know what you mean. Yeah, I think I mentioned this earlier. I went to a Brooks and Dunn concert last night. I was absolutely shocked at the number of teenagers at a Brooks and Dunn concert, seeing how Brooks is 70 and Kix Dunn is 68. But the entire time I was there were teenagers around me Snapchatting the entire concert, and that's all they did. Look, put your phones down when you go to a concert, enjoy it, have fun, and stop Snapchatting the entire damn time. That's my closing thought.
You look, man, I'm a huge Rush fan. Of course, they're not touring anymore. They don't exist anymore. Neil Peart died last year or so. The most I would do would be take a picture, like a selfie, take a picture of myself. But the people viewing, you're there live. Why would you?
Yes, and you never watch these videos again. I mean, you take 100 videos at a concert. How many times do you go back through your videos and watch them again? Now, I took one video last night of Red Dirt Road because that is an incredible song, but that was it.
Well, it's not just that. Is you have the performer right in front of you, and you're viewing it through a 4-inch screen.
Yes. The entire time. I mean, there's people that never put their phone down the entire concert.
Well, mine is somewhat selfish. Shepherd's Rest, which I am a board member. They are a women's shelter in Paulding County. Anybody who wants to make a donation, please do. Please do. Because I am who I am, I was able to go on another podcast, and I'm bringing in one of the co-hosts from that podcast to our board meeting. It is the work they do is so important. And I think I mentioned on the show before, it's hilarious that I spent 45 minutes making misogynistic jokes, and then Doug, the host, asked me about my philanthropic work, and Melissa, his co-host, was shocked absolutely shocked that after this guy makes all these horrible jokes for 45 minutes, is deeply involved with the women's shelter. So if it touches your heart, if that kind of stuff, please. They're not hard to find. It's called Shepherd's Rest Ministries. They take exactly $0 from government. If you can send $2, it helps. So I don't usually end on heartfelt stuff, but this is a charity that touches me very deeply. And anything I could do for them, I certainly will. So, on that note, thank you very much to Eric Cumby, our editor, to Ken Pullen, my partner in this endeavor. I'm Dave Roberts. We'll talk to you next week.
Catch me howling at the moon.